God bless everybody today. It is September 23 of 2023. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about this. This is something that I've mentioned before. I've got a young adult in my family. My daughter could potentially be drafted. This is a potential as the administration moves us closer and closer into a war with the East. And so if you haven't thought about us going to a draft because all the entrance of all the different branches are so low, you should think about this because some of your children might be in the target zone of that draft that might come up. And if we actually move into a world war, um, they could draft up to people up to 60 years old if it gets really, really bad. And they have done this in the past in World War II and some things. So um, I'm not going to get too deep into this article. I do want you to understand, though, that if you go out and actually look, the entrance levels to all the services are degraded. They're not good. They're not getting the people they need. And so I just Googled that military entrance, probably spelled it wrong, down nationwide, and you can see that all of the branches, every branch is struggling, even last year, this year, as we move forward. And then we have all these issues, as this article indicates, with whether they would want to actually bring or remove women from the draft, or they would want to bring women into the draft, or they've got this other issue with the woke population now, so we have to figure out what to do with that. And would there be a draft potentially in either 24 or 23, and how that's going to affect us? Okay, so whether they want to suspend draft registration or end it completely and then change the system so that they can, basically do this easier or whatever. One thing that I'm concerned about in this argument is that all nations are spending more and more on defense. And as we move closer and closer into a hostile world where we could potentially see a divide between the East and West, would be required to have a draft to make sure that we have enough active personnel or reserve personnel to basically protect our government and our populations. Now, this administration, and I've talked about this many times, have basically drained your reserves down in your oil. So we have no capacity to fill that at the prices that they are now. And when they indicated that they were going to do this to keep prices suppressed and make Mr. Joey B look good, they didn't tell you that they were trying to get it filled back up at 60 or 70, right around 60 to $70 a barrel. Well, they can't do that when it's 95. Okay, so we have not filled that reserve. We just haven't filled it. We don't have the capacity as you keep raising rates and we become more and more entrenched in debt. My concern is that they will install a draft as we move closer and closer to war. You got China basically potentially breaking out. You got a nuclear war or a really potential hot spot in Ukraine with Russia and all that. And then we potentially have something with China. North Korea is going off. There's potential wars all over the place. So would they install a draft? And the other thing you have to think about is if they do this draft, and they bring all these people in, and all countries are starting to do this more and more because they're having to, especially Russia's calling up a lot of men, Ukraine's bringing in a lot of men, we're bringing in men, NATO's bringing in, they're talking about 300,000 troops along the Russian border to protect those areas. They may have changed that since the last thing, because I don't really watch the Ukrainian thing as much as the Middle East thing. And this plays right into a couple things in their quiver. potential for depopulation of the population itself, because the more people they place in the military, the more people are basically maimed, damaged, and killed. They don't want 8 billion people on the planet. They would rather have about 2. And so this is a really good way to control the population and reduce them all at the same time. And your children will have a say in whether they go or not. You can't really run to Canada anymore because Canada's trying to figure out what to do themselves. So there's not a lot of options out here. I am concerned, though, that we could see a potential draft, not this year, but that could happen if we see Turkey break out in the Middle East change, or something geopolitically change quickly out here. They could say, you know what, we are going to bring in a draft, and we're basically dropping all these rules and before, and you really don't have a say. Just pack your stuff up and here we go, man. You're going off to another country. And so you could be watching a lot of families being basically broken apart, and some of these families are never going to see their children again. So that's something you have to think about. Anyway, I just wanted to bring this topic up. It is something that I am concerned about. I'm sure a number of people should be if they're not concerned. But something to think about, and just keep your eye on. So God bless everybody. Find that open door. Find Jesus. He is the only way through this nightmare, and it is coming upon us quickly. God bless everybody. Have a great night.